what's up, folks? Welcome to Rise. I am Lifetime Longhorn by Lifetime Longhorn CJ Vogel as well, our man inside the know all things Longhorn and Longhorn football and recruiting. And of course, we are joined by the coach. He has been a high school football coach at Burnett. He was a college football player as well at Abilene Christian, also coached there in multiple stints. 5 different seasons on the staff at the University of Texas in a different capacity, one way or another. He is a renaissance man, especially when it comes to football. You can find his work now at shipleyranches.com. It's Coach Bob Shipley. What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Y'all doing all right?
Coach, we've been hanging in there.
Coach, doing real good
today. I know you've been doing the same.
Yeah, I just been back listening to a little Travis Scott. Just kind of getting my vibe going. Or was it Travis Hunter? I can't remember. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, for those who did not get the inside joke, the rapper Travis Scott did visit Texas practice today. Was there some, and CJ, you're a little cooler than I am, was there some link to, like, he was part of them selling some fashion line also at Texas today, like some Cactus Jack / Texas gear, something like that going on? Was that some cross promotion going on?
He's on a promotional tour at the moment, kind of going campus to campus. He was at LSU yesterday. Actually, oddly enough, he made the trip from LSU last night to today, and he brought Jaden Daniels with him. So he was at the co-op as well to promote the Cactus Jack clothing apparel line, which has partnered up with a number of some of the big universities and programs across the country to create some pretty cool gear. And so today, as we were walking out of the Moncrief facility for the player availability, there was a line stretching the entire duration of the east side of DKR all the way down to that little police station and up the hill to I-35 there, all waiting to get their hands on some Cactus Jack apparel. There's another line at the Moody Center at the team shop there that stretched all the way up and around the Moody Center there. So folks are excited for it. A lot of students looking forward to some Cactus Jack and University of Texas apparel. And I'm sure next Monday when we come back, Coach will have himself a nice little logo on the chest as well, because I'm sure he's got his gear all on pre-order too.
Yeah, you know it, man. Travis? Yeah, didn't Travis, like, all my exes live in Texas or something? Didn't he do that song? I can't remember.
We're close there. We're close there. That was great. They're on the right track.
I'll say this. Coach has enough. He's got enough kids and grandkids now. He's cooler than you think. Trust me. Coach is a lot cool. He's a lot more in the know than you know. I guarantee you that. Right. All right, we got Coach. Yeah, but exactly right. They keep you young, Coach. They keep you young. You probably know more of the cool terms and more of the urban dictionary terms these days than I do. I don't. I'm out of the know. My kid is way too young. One day she'll be able to teach it to me. I'm glad we got Coach here because we can talk some football. Glad CJ is here as well because he was actually on campus. The man is always on campus. He's either CJ is out and about, having a good time out, at downtown somewhere hanging out with the young folks, or he is on campus working. That's all I know about CJ. Either he's partying, having a good time, or he's working. CJ even flew to Vegas. People forget that CJ flew to Vegas before the Super Bowl just to go to Vegas. Just because he was like, is this going to be the center of the sports universe? I'm just going to go there and kick it for a minute. CJ did that. That's what kind of life CJ lives.
That was a fun
right,
time.
CJ? Did you do that?
I probably wouldn't do it again. A little 13-hour trip to Vegas, no hotel room, just living on the streets and at the tables and in the casinos out there. But that was a good time on the Friday night of the Super Bowl. But I had to do it once. Back to campus, back to 6th Street, whatever it is now. I'm planted in Austin for a little bit. Not planning on doing that again.
Yeah, we're all living vicariously through you, CJ. All of us old men on this channel are living vicariously through you. So keep doing your thing. But he was down there on campus for the player availabilities. There were some players actually who spoke to the media today. No coaches. Sark didn't speak to the media, but the players did. And CJ, it was Anthony Hill, Kelvin Banks, and Cedric Baxter. And obviously those guys are going to be a significant impact players for Texas next season. But there are other guys who probably have more seniority, maybe more skins on the wall, you would expect to see them early. But no, some of the youngsters getting some media availabilities early on. Cedric Baxter, and I thought that was very interesting as well.
Yeah, it was interesting that we didn't see someone like Jahdae Barron or a Barron Sorrell or, even a Michael Taft come out today. And so I was excited, obviously, to get back to talk to Anthony Hill, someone who I covered very closely during his recruitment. Getting to talk to CJ Baxter for the first time for me allowed me to, kind of peel back the curtain of what we have come to know about him. His maturation is tremendous. He's got a very intelligent and bright look at the game of football and the way that he approaches the game. I was really encouraged to hear about that. And of course, Kelvin Banks, who we're looking at right now to be with Quinn Ewers atop of the NFL draft board from the Longhorn team a year from now. So really cool to see the three of them kind of trot it out. Coach, I was joking earlier with Jerry on our recap of the player availability. Felt like Sarkisian just goes, yeah, let me go find my 3 stars I know will be on the field in the starting my 5-star guys that will be on the field in the starting capacity this year and say, let me just go parade them to the world right now. And that's what he did with Kelvin Banks, CJ Baxter, and obviously Anthony Hill. I thought it was really interesting. And the overarching theme that I took from them, obviously Anthony Hill, CJ Baxter, behind 2 guys a year ago that are heading off into the NFL. Or they played next to, CJ Baxter and Jonathan Brooks, Jalen Ford and Anthony Hill. I thought it was really interesting what they were able to say about the 2 of them, kind of picking their brain and kind of picking up on tendencies and things to do off the field that really stand out and kind of get you prepared for the life of a college athlete. And then I heard from Kelvin Banks, but kind of on the opposite side, because he's a guy that's been there for 2 years compared to just the one from Anthony Hill and CJ Baxter. But Kelvin Banks said, yeah, I've got 4 guys under my wing right now that I'm really starting to look after. And that's Trevor Goosby, Jaden Chapman, Andre Kojo, and the 5-star freshman, Brandon Baker. So to me, that's really encouraging. You've got the old guys who have been here for a while, starting to teach, some of the youngsters. And then you've got your 5-star freshmen coming in with open minds, kind of allowing others to teach them the reins rather than coming in and thinking they know the game of football by itself, coming in as true freshmen. So the way that Texas uses their older guys who are on the field often, to me, is very encouraging, because you like that player-led program and you like how that machine kind of runs itself. So that was my big takeaway from the player availabilities.
Cool.
That's a good point there.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I'm kind of curious what Anthony Hill had to say, and did y'all talk any strategy as far as maybe what he's anticipating or what he's been getting looks at this spring?
Yeah, we did, and the conversation that was interesting with Anthony is, he's open to the idea of moving around the Texas defense. He likes where he is in the middle. He feels like it fits his strengths of coming down the hill, playing the run game, which he feels more comfortable in. He's reading blocks, pulls, schemes on the run game a little bit better right now, 8 practices into the spring, which is encouraging, because everything on the bright side that we saw from Anthony Hill a year ago, I would say the run game and the run fit specifically might have lacked a little bit. So for him to come out and say that he's feeling more comfortable in diagnosing run plays, schemes, and direction, that's a great sign. He also added it would be, in his words, it would be a blessing for the coaches to entrust the helmet communication to him. Yeah, he did. He back to his high school days and was like, yeah, back at Denton Ryan, where we won state championships on that defensive side of the ball, I was the guy relaying the call from the sidelines to my teammates. So if that's the case again here, I feel like I would be up to the challenge. That's, kind of verbatim what Anthony Hill was telling us this morning. So really interesting again, because, we've kind of debated, would it be a Jahdae Barron, a Michael Taft, and Anthony Hill? Well, while they haven't yet practiced it or put the communication in the helmets just yet, Anthony Hill is looking at that as a challenge he's willing to take on and kind of become part of his game in the 2024 fall.
I think that's interesting, because I do believe Quinn mentioned that Quinn on the offensive side, they have worked some headset communication, correct, in practice. So that would tell me the uncertainty on the defensive side about who's going to actually wear the green dot. It's probably hindering them from doing it in practice because it would probably be inefficient. Like, we don't even know who's going to wear it. Why would we, obviously let that be a burden on someone in practice, and we don't actually know who's going to have the headset communication. That's interesting, though. They haven't done it on defense. I thought they'd have just done it with different guys. Maybe let Jahdae Barron do it one day. Maybe let Anthony Hill do it one practice. Maybe let Makuba do it another practice. So just tells me the coaches, they don't know just yet how they want to do that. Coach, how would you do it? Who would you give the green dot to, Coach, on defense?
Well, I think, Anthony Hill would be the first choice right off the top of my head. But as we talked on Football Theory a few weeks ago, Rod, you've got to take into consideration who's going to be on the field, who's going to be a 3-down player for you, and it's going to be very difficult to keep track with who's out there when you're pulling guys off the field and going with a nickel set or a dime set or, a bear front or whatever. You've got to figure out who's going to be on the field, who's going to be one of your leaders that's a 3-down player defensively in order. And then, of course, you've got to have a backup plan. You got to have a plan for when so-and-so is coming out, who's going to be going in. But I would think he would be a guy that's going to be on the field, 3 downs. So that would be my first guess, but we'll see where the coaches go with that.
It's interesting. And I also heard, and we'll move on to some of the Kelvin Banks comments and Cedric Baxter as well. But I also heard Anthony Hill, when he was asked about moving to middle linebacker and playing more middle linebacker, that he was comfortable with it. Kind of described himself as a football player. That's not a huge transition for him, and said that he's enjoying moving around and coming off the edge and blitzing from different areas of the defense. But he was also asked about Colin Simmons. He was really complimentary of young Colin Simmons. And he believes that Colin Simmons is going to be a great player too for them. I thought that was another interesting comment from Anthony Hill. He's a guy and I've met him a couple of times. We did our Third and Longhorns podcast. So shout out to Nick Shuley and Alex Okafor and Derek Johnson, my man Fozzie Whitaker, Jeremy Hills, and the crew. But even then, he's really mature for his age. And I could see why the coaches would not only put him out there for the media availability, but they would entrust him possibly to wear the green dot and to be the quarterback of the defense if possible. I just think if you're going to move him around the chessboard, that makes it difficult for him to have that responsibility and move him around and also be the guy that communicates the defense. But we shall see. So much is given, much is expected, and there's a lot of expected of Anthony Hill. Anything else about Anthony Hill's comments and the media availability, CJ?
Yeah, I mean, the number one, kind of thing that we haven't yet talked about for me with Anthony Hill's time today was, he shouted out Ty Anthony Smith a little bit, and he gave the youngin some love. And what's interesting is Anthony Hill hosted Ty Anthony on his official visit. So the two go back a little bit with their relationship. And when Texas went in late to flip Ty Anthony Hill again from Texas A&M, I mean, Anthony Hill was a big piece of that. So similar routes for both of them to get to Texas. And now that they have that commonality, it's cool to see just the two of them working hard and working together now in that linebacking room. Interestingly enough, Anthony Hill told us, Ty Anthony comes in with a little bit more of an advantage in his game when it comes to intellectual, kind of his approach to knowing the game of football more so than what Anthony Hill did at the time of him coming in from Denton Ryan. So I thought that was really interesting. Talking about the smarts and the brains of Ty Anthony Smith, certainly something that I think, Coach, is something that's a little bit of a underrated aspect of his game, because you look at 6'1", 6'2", 200 pounds, probably not 100% ready to get on the field, especially at the middle linebacker spot in the SEC. But when you talk about when that body does get ready and the brains are already there, it certainly helps expedite the process of knowing the game and knowing where to be when things start really speeding up for you.
Yeah, it does. And I like the way that our upperclassmen are not dogging the young guys. You see, it's funny how sometimes you see well, old Rook over there, he's got to do this or that, or, they got to come in here and realize they're not the big guy on campus anymore, and really almost put those guys down to where you've got to earn your status. And that kind of goes into some of the thoughts that many people had about the program being entitled. We're entitled. Right. You haven't earned the right to be here. We have blah, blah, blah. And instead it's that family of pick, I don't know that I've ever been around a team that brags on each other as much as these guys do from the 23 season, but also obviously carrying into the, spring ball and the 24 season, which I think is very healthy. I love to see them bragging on each other, especially, giving good prop to the freshmen coming in, the new guys, because that shows a healthy environment instead of one that is a little bit intimidated by this 5-star guy coming in. Is he going to, upseat some of us returning starters or whatever, it's supposed to be, they're supposed to be my year, whatever. And you see that sometimes they're a little bit intimidated, by the big guys that come in that were very, very highly recruited. But I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a healthy environment, and I hope that continues to happen.
Yeah, I think, again, and this has been the recurring theme so far, it's just talking about that machine starting to run itself. And that's very encouraging because, again, Coach, you've been inside the walls. You've seen what makes a team good and what might set it back or hold it back from reaching its potential. Sometimes that involves some bad apples and some guys who aren't aligned 100% with the mission of the program coming in. So when you talk about the culture, and specifically the one that Sarkisian has set with this program, I mean, it's certainly worth all the hoopla and all the noise and all the headlines that it's receiving because we see it and we're hearing about it again with these 3 guys this afternoon talking to us again just about how important it is for them and the young guys to understand what the goal of this team is, and that's to win championships.
Sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And the culture has helped them win a lot of games. We already know that. And I was actually got a chance to talk to Rojo today, who's been known as kind of the culture bearer for this group and what he did in 2021 when they lost that game to Kansas and that famous speech that he gave. And, Rojo talks about how sacred the culture is and how special that culture is and how they take a lot of pride passing that down now from the older generation of players to the younger generation of players. So it's something I think that, Sark understands. It's why he talks about bringing the guys he's bringing in and being really careful about the character of the players he's bringing in. I think he wants to make sure he safeguards it and maintains it with a lot of care and with a lot of attention.
100%. And so we'll see it again with this recruiting class coming up in 2025. What kind of high character guys and what kind of guys Texas goes and targets from state championship winning programs, which has been a recurring theme so far. Having that kind of instilled in them to begin with, it's a seamless transition once they get to Texas because that goal remains the same: championships, championships, championships.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and especially if you can find those guys that are from the championship program that still got that dog attitude. They still got a chip on their shoulder because you don't want guys coming in big dogging it. Because I've seen you play, Duncanville, or I saw you play whatever, 3 years in a row. And it's easy for guys like that to feel like that they're really something, but it doesn't. When you get on campus and see some real dogs, you kind of.
Good stuff, Coach. And so, hey, Rod, real quick, I wanted to ask you because this is another one of those topics that we heard a little bit today, specifically from CJ Baxter, who was talking about why he ended up committing to Texas and why he was able to kind of pick up his life in Florida and move to Texas without necessarily having many ties to the program or to the state. I think it was really interesting. He talked about his relationship with Tashard Choice and how important it was for him to rely on Coach Choice and really fall back on him when things weren't necessarily moving well, whether it be off the field, on the field. He got dinged up a little bit his senior year. He talked about his relationship with Tashard Choice and was ultimately like, I would not have been here at Texas talking to you guys now if it wasn't for my relationship with Coach Choice and my trust in him to letting him kind of mold me into the player that I want to be. So, Matthew, we have the clip here. If we can play that real quick, just to get y'all an idea of kind of how important he thought Choice was to his overall recruitment and development as a football player.
Your relationship with Tashard Choice and, trusting him enough to move from Florida to Texas to come play for him.
Like you said, trust is a big part with Coach Choice. And if you look at, man, the type of dude he is outside of football, it stands out. I mean, that's what really won me over. I know how he develops backs and stuff like that, but outside of football, the type of person he is, I feel like I can, if I don't want to call my dad or my granddad or a family member, like blood, I know I can call him like, hey, Coach Choice, I got this going on, or I got this, and he will give me the same answer that somebody that's in my bloodline would give me.
I mean, that's heaven for a talented football player that picks up their life and moves to a completely different state across the country. Having that trust in your position coach is huge. And Rod, I wanted to kick it to you because, you've talked about Coach Akina in the past. You've talked about how important those position groups and meetings and just having that camaraderie in that room that you meet with every single day is. When it comes to guys like Coach Choice, I mean, just how important is it for not only individual players in his room, but the entire locker room as a whole when it comes to keeping vibes high and guys in line?
Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned that's crazy that he has that cut. I just mentioned that I talked to Rojo and I asked Rojo, what makes that position room so special? Why is that culture so unique where, excuse me, it's truly a next man up, right? You saw Rojo lose his job and then Bijan step up to be a top back, and both those guys leave, and Jay Brooks steps up to be a Doak Walker Award finalist. And Cedric Baxter is a guy that started off as the starting back there, but lost his job and ends up later on in the season having a 100-yard game. And Jaden Blue had a 100-yard game when Jonathan Brooks went down. And he said it was Tashard Choice, specifically Tashard Choice and his standard, the standard that he holds those guys to, the standard that he holds each and every player in that room to, and making sure that he pushes those guys as much as possible to that standard. And he talked about how he addresses them on a human level, not just coach to player, but trying to relate to them as human beings and trying to relate to them as young men. And because of the coaching from Tashard Choice, it's received differently. And I think, and it's received obviously in a lot more constructive fashion because these guys take it to the field and you see these guys actually get better game to game, down to down. You watch these guys step up, next man up mentality there. And he basically gave Tashard Choice all the credit and had very similar things, echoed very similar sentiment to CJ Baxter there. And I've heard Jonathan Brooks say the same thing when he was at the combine about Tashard Choice and how special Tashard Choice's coaching style is. So I think that's a big part of it. But before that, it was Stan Drayton, and Stan Drayton had a really good culture in that running back room. So it existed before Tashard Choice, and Rojo gave Stan Drayton a lot of credit too. So it's partly the young men that they recruit in that room. I mean, Bijan. I mean, there's a better quality human being out there than Bijan Robinson. Rojo, look at him as a natural leader. You were really impressed with Cedric Baxter and how mature he is, right? And he's a kind of an old soul as a running back. I heard him talking about how every running back should want to be in a backfield by committee, a running back backfield by committee, because it keeps you fresher and you get to spread out the touches and the burden of being a running back and the load and the wear and tear of it. That's a mature take from a young running back. So I think it's something special about that room, and every room should strive to be what the Texas running back room is right now. Every position group should strive to be what they are right now, because it's special, and it's not just one player. It ain't just a transcendent generational talent of Bijan, and it's not just Tashard Choice's coaching. It was before him with Stan Drayton, and everybody in that room now feels the burden and the responsibility of keeping the standard up. And that the Coach Akina did that for us too. And I remember, and I still do, talk about Coach Akina in a very same way, in the very same light.
Nick.
Yeah.
Coach, back in the day, could you sense when players were closer to other, position coaches? Could you tell when it wasn't just playing for the team or the logo, but they, kind of had that pride in the coaches that were, seeing them every day in meetings and on the field as well?
Yeah, there's no doubt. The coaches spend so much time with those guys. It's so critical for them to have a good relationship with them. Stan Drayton was I didn't get to work with Coach Choice very long, but Stan Drayton and I worked together for 3 or 4 years, and he's a real deal. He went out and recruited those guys that are in the NFL right now, and really started changing the culture offensively in that room, because those guys, those are the big dogs on campus. I mean, they better be, or you're going to have a long season,
Yeah.
So when you got Bijan and Rojo, they're looked up to by everybody on the team, and then they're doing the things that they're doing, and of course Jay Witt, Drayton was involved in recruiting him too. Remember, Jay Witt was a running back,
Right.
And so it's just really cool to see that influence continue to work through great hires by Sark with Choice, and the hires that he continues to make they are players, coaches, and that's a huge deal. When you have 10 coaches that have that kind of relationship with their players, then it can be a culture change, and I think that's what we're witnessing.
Good deal.
Yeah. And also, I would say it helps because the players are helping recruit the other players when you get that, that recommendation by other players that this coach is the real deal, that this coach improved me not only as a player, but as a person. That's a hell of a sales pitch, in addition to what the school is selling and the coaches are selling. But when the players in that room, like Rojos and Bijans and Jay Brooks, are talking about their position coach that way, other guys who are being recruited at that position by that coach, it's just more of a glowing endorsement. I mean, it's more and more. It just I think solidifies that coach's brand and that coach's reputation. That's what happened to Coach Aquina. It basically every guy that went to the league had great things to say about Coach Aquina time and time again, and he kept sending so many guys to the league, kind of like what Tashard Choice is doing right now, that it became, I think, kind of I will say a self-fulfilling prophecy, in a sense where all the guys who came out, they would help recruit because they would always talk about Coach Aquina and what he did for them, like I do. And then the younger guys, I mean, coming out, those while Huff Daddy's still on campus, those guys still involved with the program because they start to feel that responsibility. Now, DBU is not where it was then. It'll get back there, but you're starting to see what that running back room is now. And I don't know. I'm trying to think when was the last time Texas had a position room that's been as good as the running back room is now. When was that, Coach CJ? Last time Texas had a position room that through multiple seasons has been as good as the running back room at Texas has been for the last years. I mean, even Keontae Ingram is an NFL running back.
Yeah, I think you got to go back at least 15 years and probably 20 with DBU.
Yeah. I think the only room that comes similarly close, and it certainly didn't have, I would say, the accolades or even kind of the hype at the time. I think it tried to. Obviously, the 2018 recruiting class helped, but that group of Deshaun Elliott, Brandon Jones, you had Caden Stearns back there. You had the tail end of a PJ Locke as well. So there was talent in that safety room. You probably didn't see perhaps the results on the field that you would have liked. Texas got beat deep pretty often, I would say, at the time, but it wasn't for a lack of talent. Those guys are still playing in the NFL at the moment. So for whatever the reason, it didn't necessarily work out to the level of DBU most Texas fans would have expected and preferred at the time, but those guys did have some talent. But I would say a firm answer, you'd have to look back somewhere in the 2008, 9, 2010 area for your actual answer there.
I will say, I bet that quarterback, I would say that quarterback room was nice when you think about it. You went from Major to Sims to a little bit of Chan / VY to Colt. That's pretty good. What was that? That spanned what 8, 9 years of great quarterback play for you.
It's not too bad.
Major Sims to VY to Colt, basically. Chance Mock thrown in there. And by the way, Chance Mock ain't no scrub, by the way. Chance Mock was a hell of a player and would have started at some other schools, but he wanted to play at Texas. So so maybe that's it. And somebody just I got a text saying, hey man, don't forget about that D tackle room. The last couple of years have been damn good because Ojimo and Keandre Coburn were really damn good. You can argue you've had maybe the best D tackle room in the country the last 2 years, and that included the coach with Bo Davis too. So that's one to throw out there that it may have been, maybe it was just last year, the last couple of years of the D tackle room. The last time you had a position group or a position room that was that good as the running back. But the running back room, like I said, this has been going on since Dan Drayton was there. So this is Tom Herman's, last couple of years there at Texas. Keontae Ingram was a damn good running back. So interesting conversation there. We'll throw that out on the before the comments as well. Before we continue here, let's give a shout out to our wonderful sponsors. We really appreciate them. First, Flat Creek Estate Winery, folks. 11 awards for Flat Creek Estate Winery in 30 days. Yes, including Double Gold Grand Reserve and Texas Grand Reserve at the Houston Rodeo. Flat Creek Estate Winery is raking in the awards, and it's just a few minutes away from the heart of Austin. You cannot beat that, whether you want a mini vacation or whatever it may be. Select bottles of the wines by Flat Creek Estate are now available at your local Specs, and now you can get a taste of what they're all about. Flat Creek Estate is also a gorgeous venue for the whole family all spring. Take in the Clips next week with a bottle in hand, and their winemaker's dinner on April 11th is the perfect date night. Eat, drink, and be awesome at Flat Creek Estate. For more information, please visit flatcreekestate.com. That's flatcreekestate.com to find out more information about Flat Creek Estate Winery, and we really appreciate their support of the winning drive. And I guarantee you, when we get some time and we get a babysitter, that me and wifey will be paying a visit to Flat Creek Estate Winery, and I suggest that you do the same. The weather's getting perfect to go out there and enjoy yourself at Flat Creek Estate. Also, let's give a shout out to Laura Baker. She also is a accomplished Austin realtor, but also a supporter of our program. We appreciate that very much. So if you're looking to buy or sell your home in or around the Austin area, you want to work with someone who knows their stuff, and that is Laura Baker. Laura Baker of Keller Williams knows the Austin real estate market as well as or better than anyone else, and she's also a real lifelong Longhorn fan. So that's family, folks. So give her a call at give her at 517-845. Email her at laura@andyallenteam.com. That's laura@andyallenteam.com. So thank you to Laura Baker for all of her support as well. We really appreciate all the love, and also she's a supporter of Football Theory too. So Laura Baker, we're a fan of hers. All right, so let's get back to the conversation. We'll get to some of the questions in the chat, and we'll also get to some of your super chats. You got a super chat out there, throw it out there, and we'll get to that too coming up. And also, there's there may be some NIL rule changes with the NCAA that are really interesting, and I know Coach wanted to get into some of that too, so we'll get to that coming up a little bit later on, because you may be looking at, I don't know, a drastic shift in the methods that are allowed to facilitate NIL deals. And if that is the case, then it is definitely going to help the University of Texas, which I think it always helped the University of Texas when you're talking about NIL and being in that space as well. All right, let's get back to some spring practice conversation here, and spring football conversation, guys. One of the things that I was looking at on TexasFootball.com, Bobby Burton did a great job throwing out some of the practice nuggets and out there. the first world problem that exists on the offensive line is really interesting because now Hayden Connor is getting a lot of those first team reps when it was Nato Umeozulu getting a lot of those first team reps. Is it possible? And Coach, I want to get your thoughts. Do you want your offensive line, your top 5 guys, to always work together as much as possible so that they are on the same page and they are hive-minded? I heard Kelvin Banks actually talking about this a little bit in the player availability, that he doesn't expect a lot of drop-off because those guys and those guys spend a lot of time together. They communicate really well together, and that's what's going to make them a great offensive line. To communicate really well together, you need reps together so that you kind of know exactly how the other player on your offensive line, how your teammate is going to react to certain situations when you're passing off defenders in pressure packages, whatever it may be. And you want those guys to have a lot of reps together so that they get that continuity and that chemistry. Or do you just want to have 7-8 guys in rotation and then rotate either situationally or rotating guys because of matchups that are more favorable? Which is more ideal? You're just trying to get that best 5 out there and give them as much experience and as many reps as possible, or you do want to just a healthy rotation of 7 or 8 guys on the offensive line, based on the situation and based on the circumstance?
Yeah, I think you got to keep guys rotating in and out. Obviously, you want some continuity, but it doesn't matter who's playing next to you. You have to have great communication on the offensive line. And most people that, haven't been out on the field as a player or coach, they don't realize that. When you're watching on TV or you're up in the stands, you once in a while you'll see them pointing, whatever. But I'm telling you, those dudes are talking all the time. They're talking. They got little hidden meanings in words that they say. They come up with their own lingo about what kind of, how maybe they're going to protect or whatever. So I think it's important to rotate him in because you don't ever know when you're going to have a guy go down and now you're stuck with a guy who really hadn't been in there a whole lot and doesn't really know exactly, doesn't have on each interior line to certain blitzes and that type of thing. So I certainly, but you got to rotating in that you got to get out of the game. You got to get out of the game with these guys. Make sure they're ready.
Yeah. No, the communication is going to be key. That was one of the things, one of the only issues that I think that was troublesome for them maybe early on last season, picking up some of those blitzes, twists and stunts up front, things of nature. Let me ask you this, CJ, because this is something that actually came up on one of the live streams, and I don't think we got a chance to address it. And I think you might have talked about it, is why people were asking about it. We're not going to be doom and gloom here, but the transfer portal is a reality. And a team like Texas that has a lot of depth, there are going to be some players that look at other opportunities potentially. If there is attrition at a specific position, which position will it be? Because I was talking to somebody and, offensive line is really an outlier. It's been amazing how they've been able to stockpile talent on the O-line without a lot of attrition. Shout out to the Pancake Factory and shout out to Kyle Flood. Is that something now that's going to continue, even though they keep bringing in high caliber O-linemen and you still got veterans that are returning? Or is at another position where Texas is stockpiling talent where you could see potentially some attrition because guys are seeking other opportunities in the transfer portal?
I think this is the first year you'll start to see some attrition from the program that might be a bit of a surprise. Some guys that you might have expected to eventually become contributors down the road, maybe even be on the field a little bit this year as well. This is the first year you'll be able to see that because, again, Texas's depth across the field on both sides of the football is very good. Sarkisian talked about it the other day. They're able to go 4 deep at a number of positions and feel comfortable and confident about what kind of talent they have at each spot. While they're able to go 2 deep in scrimmages consistently, they're also able to throw out a third team at times and really be able to double up on game reps in scrimmages. So while there's a lot of talent on the field, that also means there's a lot of waiting for for guys, younger guys specifically, to get onto the field and really start establishing where they want to be as college athletes. So I do think offensive line, you'll see attrition. I think you'll see perhaps a tight end or two enter the portal as well. Moving forward on the defensive side of the ball, I think you might see a defensive back leave at the least right now, and we'll see what happens on the edges as well, because we talk about some of those very kind of crowded rooms that have a lot of really talented pieces at the moment. Some youngsters who have been around for 2 or 3 years now are seeing some really talented 5-star freshmen come in, a couple portal additions, and thinking, you know what? If I really love the game of football and I really want to see where my game can take me in terms of going to the league or not, I've got to find a place where I can get on the field. And if Texas continues to bring in these highly talented freshman guys and stars out of the portal, this might not be the place for me. So offensive line with the ability to hold on to 18 guys on scholarship at the moment, to me, I feel like it's just a matter of time before you see 1 or 2 enter the portal and say, yeah, I've got to start thinking about myself moving forward.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like I said, I don't want to be reflecting on the negative, but this spring will be a lot of those. So as team and in some of those competitions. And that's just a reality of the new landscape of college football that we're in. We'll talk about the new landscape too, because I think there may be some more changes to the landscape of college football, and with the NIL rules that are changing with the NCAA. We know there are NIL laws with every state, but the NCAA actually may tweak some of their rules, which is going to make, I think, the NIL, which is basically going to increase the arms race within the NIL landscape, which we'll talk about here in a second. But a couple of questions here. My man CB, since we're talking about the offensive line, CB wants to know, and shout out to my man CB, love my man Chris Bennett, how many current offensive linemen get drafted? Banks, obviously, but who else? Yeah, I saw a Pro Football Focus. It was basically a breakdown of all the offensive tackles coming out this season for this upcoming draft class, and the best ones from the basically the 2025 class are eligible tackles from the 2025 class of tackles. And it basically said, Kelvin Banks, if you're considering this draft class and the next draft class of tackles coming out, he would still be top three ranked offensive tackle among that group coming out. He's been a first round pick since his freshman year. I mean, how many times have we said that, coach, about a player we saw him their freshman year and went, yep, that guy's gonna be drafted in the first round? I think we all can say, like, oh, that guy's gonna be drafted, that guy gonna play in the NFL. But to say that guy's gonna be drafted in the first round, I think everybody was saying that literally after watching him and after his freshman year, first round pick. How rare is that, coach?
What was our big guy's name? Davis? What was big country?
Leonard Davis?
Woo! Leonard, yeah, I think everybody probably thought he was either going to start or eat everybody. I didn't. He's going to be a first round pick, or he's going to. Golly, that's one of the most impressive humans I've ever seen.
Yes, he was. No, Big Len was a beast. I think Big Len was he a top 5 pick? I would say he was top 5, something like that. Yeah, no, Big Len was. I don't know how the hell he slept in the dorm rooms, guys, but Big Len slept in the dorm. They had to bring in a special bed for him. They had to. I don't even know. He probably was ducking and trying to go in sideways through the little dorm doors. I don't know, man. We had some big dudes living in the dorm. Big Sean Rogers lived in the dorms with us. Like I said, I don't know how they fit in them beds, but they did live in Jester, man. Shout out to Jester. But no, I want to get your thoughts, CB, about this question, and you too, coach. How many guys on that O-line right now? Let's just pick out what your best 5, whatever it may be. How many of those guys play on Sundays?
Ooh,
oh baby, second pick of the draft, right after Michael Vick.
Second pick. Ooh, guard.
Hey,
you didn't pick that high? That's crazy.
Three picks ahead of LT.
Wow.
That's right. Right behind Michael Vick. Wow. I didn't realize he was that high. Dang.
It's a blast from the past there, huh? I was probably what year was this? Michael Vick came out in the
2000? 2000?
2001.
Is it 01?
Yeah, here we go. 21. 2001.
I was just about to turn 4 years old.
CJ, why you doing that to us, man? Why you making Coach feel bad? You making me feel bad? Come on, man. We don't need to know that.
Hey, my bad. Hands up. But hey, who knows?
I was in my prime then. That was my prime. That was literally, I was 21 years old. That's literally my prime. And CJ's like, I was 4 years old. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. How do you think that makes me feel, man?
Oh, come on. We're all three of us still in our prime, guys. Rod, you still got it. Coach, come on.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know what it is, but
my come on just takes a little longer than it used to.
Yeah, right.
if I can even come on. I'm not even saying I can't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe depends on how bad I want it. It's all about motivation when you get older. It's all about, do I really want to get up and go in there and do I want to lay in bed a little while longer? It's all about motivation.
Amen, brother.
That's good stuff, Coach. Rod, I did want to get to your question because it is interesting, who on this offensive line could you see getting drafted? I think obviously if you go left or right, Kelvin Banks, we've talked about it, absolutely going to get drafted. Who's at left guard? Is it Hayden Connor? Is it Nato Umeozulu? I think there's potential for both to be drafted, but it might take a little bit of time. Hayden Connor's been a 2-year starter. If he starts again this year, that's close to 40 starts under his belt that he'll eventually have racked up for the NFL draft. That's an interesting one to me because I think at 320, 325, you can work with that. It'll take a step up this year, but we'll see. That's a lot of experience NFL scouts would have to pass on for him to not end up at least with some sort of shot back in the draft there for the NFL. Jake Majors is interesting to me because he's up to about 315, 318 at the moment. Again, a guy with 40 starts under his belt at the University of Texas. He'll have played a year against the SEC's finest interior defensive lineman as well. This year of tape is going to be huge for his draft prospects moving forward to next year. And then I think DJ Campbell. We know that DJ wants to get into the NFL as soon as possible. We know that this potentially, with another strong season here, could be his final year as a Texas Longhorn. So he, in my eyes, is a draftable guy. We'll be hearing his name called at some point next April. And then Cam Williams, whether it's this year or next year, he will be moving on to the NFL. That's a big boy. That's a guy that has the arm length. He has the footwork. He has everything that you want as a big-time offensive tackle. Whether or not the question is, can he play at 350, 360, whatever he is, I think he can. And you've seen it be successful at the NFL, at least recently. And I think Cam Williams is the next in line to do just that. So do the math there. I think you have at least 3 of this group right now, the potential to be up to 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult position to make it in the league. I mean, it's just hard. You look at, we've had a few guys go in, but lately, but Connor Williams has struggled a little bit. You just look at, through the year, it's been hard to get guys in there and be consistent. So I'm always a little bit hesitant to project guys going in the NFL because, now that the schemes are a little more alike, but when a lot of these colleges, when your offensive linemen are taught to retreat every snap, and then you're going into the running NFL, smash mouth football. These guys aren't used to coming off the ball, with a good flat back and blowing people off the line as much. I think we're doing more now, especially running that duo, Rod. We're getting a lot more smash mouth, football. So our guys are doing a better job run blocking than we've done in years. But as good as Jake is at center, it's going to be, it's going to. I can't say whether he's going to get drafted or not. And Hayden Connor, same way. They're very good guys. They're very serviceable guys. Obviously, you can play in college football playoffs with them. But when you're talking about going to not just getting drafted is one thing, but making it in the league as an offensive lineman is tough. It's really tough.
Yeah. They actually believe that there's an offensive line crisis in the NFL. That basically it's because of what's lost in translation from the college game to the NFL, what you were just talking about, Coach, and just some of the techniques and the fundamentals and just the different styles of play that basically they don't have high caliber performing offensive linemen in the NFL anymore. So you're seeing sack numbers go up, quarterbacks getting hurt more, offensive efficiency overall has dropped in the NFL. And they can't really put their finger on and quantify what it is. And a lot of people believe that, no, it goes back to the offensive line play because it's also a really tough position to coach. Like, there aren't a lot of really good offensive line coaches, as you know, Coach. There are a lot of coaches coaching offensive line, but there ain't a lot of necessarily good offensive line coaches out there. And I think that's a big part. Matter of fact, and I'm not, this is no indictment on any coach, but listen to what some of the players, how they spoke about Kyle Flood as opposed to some of their coaching from previous coaches, and how they felt almost enlightened by some of the coaching from Kyle Flood, and how, obviously turned them into students of the game. I've heard some of the guys speak about this. So there's a difference. And I think that's one of the things too, that right now Texas is experiencing high caliber coaching on the offensive line. He's an NFL guy too, by the way. I mean, Kyle Flood's got NFL background, so does Sark. So that may be one of the reasons why these offensive linemen are going to translate a little bit better than some of the previous offensive.
Oh, we might have lost Rod there. But Coach, I mean, it's fun. It's fun again just to be in this conversation, to talk about the NFL draft and how many Texas Longhorns are in contention to hear their name called. And I think it's been quite a while, at least for me, to have experienced this, having followed Texas football for a while. But going back to when Texas was consistently putting out, multiple guys in the first round, that they'll have 4, 5, 6 guys drafted per year from, what was it, 2002 to about 2008. That was kind of the heyday for Texas Longhorns in the NFL draft. Are there any similarities that you're seeing right now, whether it be position coaches, the scheme, the talent on campus, behind the scenes, the mental aspect and makeup of kind of either eras at the time? Is there anything that jumps out to you in terms of what you're seeing today versus back then?
Well, when you look back at Colt and Jordan and, some of those guys, Quan, and there was spotty talent offensively on that team. The offensive line, I don't know that any of them made it in the league that played in that national championship game against Alabama. But we didn't have, at that time, I think we had lost, what was our tight end we had that played at Green Bay for a long time?
Jermichael Finley.
Jermichael Finley was out, and we didn't really have that guy anymore at tight end. And really, even after Quan, went to the league, there wasn't a lot of big-time playmakers at receiver. I just see the talent that we have now being way better than that, if I can say that. I mean, there's just so much talent on this team. It really goes back to the 05 team, I think, to find the talent that we have. And, I'm just sitting here thinking, what is a weak spot? What is our weak spot? In the past years, it's been really easy. Yeah, sure. We all know some things we've got to improve with our safety play. We've got to improve with our cornerback play. We've got to improve in our 2-minute defense. We've got to improve in our red zone offense. Those are maybe fine tuning, tweaking some playing things that were, angles and, things like that we're not doing well. But just overall, the talent is, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. And I know we get all giddy and people don't like that we think we're back when we're not, because we've had some false alarms. But I really think it's an exciting time, not just for those of us who are fans or those that went there or whatever, but just in college football in general. When the Texas Longhorns are doing good, it just seems like everything goes smooth. And if A&M's doing good and Texas is doing good, it's great for everybody. We just want to win that match. I don't care if they win all the rest of them. But it's a fun time, and I think you have to go back 18 years to find a time when we've had this much talent on the roster.
Yeah, I think what you said there, the spotty talent actually stood out to me, because when you go back and you look at those, especially the 08-09 teams, there's great talent defensively, but offensively you might have had a couple pieces here and there where I think could have been upgraded, or at least might not have brought you offensively to the point you wanted to be at least near your ceiling. I think now you're looking at 5 stars across the board. They're kind of littered across this roster currently. And I know that term kind of gets overused and overplayed at times, but, at Texas and basically anywhere else, the more 5 stars and the more guys that, were kind of high in that recruiting rankings for their class, the more times than not, the more talented football team that you'll have. You saw it with Alabama during their dynasty under Nick Saban. Georgia's kind of been that gold standard at the moment over the last couple of years. Texas right now, you can kind of pick and point to a position group across the board now. So, yeah, there's a 5-star caliber talent there at the moment. And I think that's, at least in the last decade, that's the first time you can really say that. Last year, you probably had a glimpse of that. You had a little bit of everything at some points. But I think, when you look back at that safety room and that cornerback room, at least compared to what it is today, that talent and that ceiling is significantly higher. So it's really interesting. And so that's, again, you talk about getting giddy, because, we could go all throughout this roster right now and just kind of, again, almost sit back and kick your feet up and laugh at how much talent there is across the board. But it certainly is a very exciting time here. And I wanted to get to this super chat that we just got over here from Football Junkie. Coach, coming up in the spring game, first off, thank you, Football Junkie, for the super chat. Thanks for tuning in as well. But, Coach, having been around and followed the spring game, a number of times in the past, what is, kind of that series count, that snap count, possession looks that we can expect from the ones and the twos on a given spring game, especially coming up this year with a lot of depth? Yeah.
Well, I think that's always something as a coach you want to get a good look, and you want to see where people are in terms of their development throughout the spring, but you also have to be really smart. And I don't see CJ Baxter getting a ton of touches. It may be the first quarter, and then after that, I don't see him, playing a lot. Of course, they can protect the quarterback, so that's good. But I think the coaches want to see how these kids respond to a stadium that's half full or 3/4 full or whatever. And some of these guys get under the lights and play and be on the Longhorn Network and just kind of show what they can do, because we've got a lot of new guys in key spots that we're going to have to. But the offensive linemen, I see those guys, go in the game. I think you just got to control, how you can keep guys from getting hurt. But like I said, I don't see CJ doing a whole lot, certainly in the second half, but probably a whole lot after the first quarter, because although we've got Savion and we've got some good guys back there, we can't afford to lose one of them, because I see all of those guys getting good playing time, and all of them fitting a certain role in certain situations with our offense.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. That's a good point, because CJ Baxter today during his player availability, he talked about it. You're playing the game of football. You, at no point really during the season are you 100% healthy. There are dings, there are cuts, there are scrapes that kind of linger around. And with him specifically, we saw it from the very get-go in week 1. So he said he's feeling great at the moment. He's, he didn't want to say 100%, but he's very close to that, because, again, playing the game of football at the running back spot, very demanding. So we'll see just how much of a usage he gets. I'm with you, Coach. I don't think it'll be more than 7 or 8 touches, perhaps. I think that would probably be a fair amount, especially if there's only, 5, 6, true possessions for the Texas first team offense. I would expect a running half or clock in the second half as well. So that'll be interesting. But like you said, plenty of youngsters getting their own run as well in this big game. Christian Clark, Jarrett Gibson, Trey Wisner, even Savion Red. Could they, kind of carve out a role for this first group? But That'll just about do it for today. Coach, you got any last things on your mind before we head out of here?
Well, I'm sorry we were having some technical difficulties. Rod and I both, ironically, you were carried us through the broadcast. So thanks for doing that. I think Rod and I were talking about this a little bit earlier today. One of the things that's interesting to me, if you just want to know how coaches really feel, just start reading stuff about Nick Saban. Now that he's retired and people are telling stories on him, it's really interesting. And by his own admitting that the NIL and all the things that are going on now were difficult for him to continue to coach. It made it harder and harder for him to continue to coach. And so Rod and I got to get a laugh about this because I think, was it Derrick Henry, Rod, that was it Derrick Henry that they were asking? He told a story about Nick Saban, and he said, he said Saban would say things like, I don't want to see you out there celebrating, and bringing attention to yourself and pointing to God and doing praying hands and all that stuff. He said, because I know good and well out there at midnight, you're going to have your Black and Milds and you're going to have your girl and you're going to have your liquor, so all that stuff just for show. So I don't want to see that anymore. I thought that was hilarious. How does he even know what a Black and Mild is, Rod? I'm young enough to know that.
Oh, Rod, you got the mic issue here. Can't hear you here. Because I'm with you. I don't know how Nick Saban, he's got to know it. He's seen it for multiple years, almost, 20 years now. So, he's well-versed in everything that goes in behind the scenes. Rod, try again real quick before we get out of here.
Well, we'll save our NIL and see what develops between now and Monday with the NIL. We can come back in and cover that. We got some pretty interesting things to talk about on Mondays.
Yeah, we'll get this thing going for the championship winning drive here. But for today, and Coach Shipley, lifetime Longhorn, Rod Babers up at the top. I'm CJ Vogel. Thanks for tuning in. Catch us on Texas Football moving forward. But for today, hook 'em. Y'all have a good weekend.